you've decided where your office is going to be and what furniture you will be using, now your attention should turn to the office equipment necessary to run a successful tax practice. You probably already know what the essential equipment is: a computer, a printer, a copy machine, a fax machine, and internet access. In today's world, almost everyone has a computer of some sort already. You probably have one yourself. I wouldn't get into the tax business without a computer. Stubby pencil returns are a thing of the past. Perhaps you can do a 1040EZ by hand, but everything else should be done on a computer. I recommend you use a PC instead of a Macintosh. You have many more options using the PC when it comes to tax software. If, due to budgetary constraints, a new computer is out of the question, you can find used computers which are less than 3 years old for a fraction of the cost. These used computers will perform nearly as well as new equipment. By the way, you also need internet access with your computer. That is critical in communicating with clients, performing research regarding pertinent tax questions, and e-filing returns. The monitor is a critical component of your computer system as well. As a general rule, the larger the monitor, the easier it is to view critical information. I would suggest one at least 15 inches, but preferably 17 or 19 inches in size. There's a trend toward using 2 or more monitors at the same time with the same PC. This allows you to run or view multiple programs or files at the same time. You could run tax software on one monitor and accounting software on another, looking at critical data that can then be entered into the tax software. This is nice to have even if you plan to use a laptop, which allows you to travel easily to your clients' offices or homes and work wherever you are. There are some disadvantages to laptop computers, such as theft and damage. They usually don't have 10-key capability that can be easily used. They also have smaller monitors and keyboards and sometimes cause problems if you're used to using a mouse. All of these problems can be overcome with technology like a wireless mouse, an auxiliary 10-key plug-in, and a separate keyboard. You can even plug in a separate larger monitor when you're back at your desk. The next piece of equipment you need is a printer. This is a must to print out the tax forms once they're completed. You'll be depending on your printer a lot, so speed is a critical issue. The quicker, the better, as measured by pages per minute speed. Printer speed is increasing constantly, but the faster printers are always more expensive. You need to strike a balance as to what will work for you and what you can afford. I also recommend a laser printer, but will admit that there are some very good inkjet printers on the market today. The printer should have as much RAM as possible, and it must be compatible with your tax preparation software. Another piece of equipment you're going to need is a copy machine. You need to make copies of client information, the W-2s, the 1098s, the 1099s, and the completed tax returns. These hard copies are for your storage and for your client's storage. You'll probably need a fax machine also. It's a convenient tool in accessing last-minute information when the client forgot to bring you something. With email, I find that I'm using my fax machine less and less, but I still use it. I use it enough to justify having one. You can now buy one machine that does the work of a printer, scanner, copier, and fax machine. They're referred to as a 4-in-1 machine or multifunctional machine. You can buy them in laser or inkjet versions. Usually they can be a wise investment for a small office. Again, pay particular attention to the page per minute speed. A few extra dollars paid up front could save you critical time when waiting for a printing or copying job to finish, particularly when you're in early April trying to get as many tax returns completed as you can before the tax deadline. The only drawback to a 4-in-1 is that if it breaks down, your productivity is severely hampered. So it's a good idea to have a second printer available and know where the closest print shop is located and what their fax number is in the event you have to scramble to finish a client's return. A telephone is also a critical piece of office equipment for a tax preparer. However, I don't think you need to establish a new telephone number just for your tax practice. Your personal cell phone will do just fine. You can take it with you and communicate with anyone just about anywhere you are. You can leave a special voicemail message so that clients and potential clients know that they have reached the right person and their call will be returned as quickly as possible. Besides having essential office equipment, it is necessary to have office supplies readily available so you don't need to frequent the office supply store, especially during tax season. When do you usually run out of something? Yep, midnight. Office supply stores are not open at midnight when you need them to be, so the extra supply needs to be in your office somewhere. These essential office supplies include printer cartridges, file folders, client folders, appointment calendar, mailing envelopes, business cards, mailing labels, paper, and postage. Additionally, you'll need some supplies for your desk, such as pencils, pads of paper, paper clips, stapler, staples, tape dispenser, extra tape, scissors, pens and pencils, and correction fluid. And don't forget that if you have those Echo Fastener folders, you will also need a 2-hole punch. You might also want to have a 3-hole punch to put information sheets that you get from the IRS downloads in a binder. So much for office equipment and office supplies. Let's turn our attention to an important topic that can make your life as a tax preparer easy or very difficult. I'm referring to the tax software that you'll be using on your computer to prepare tax returns. You can purchase TurboTax and other off-the-shelf tax programs at any office supply store. However, they will not be sufficient. They work fine for individuals, but not professionals. For instance, TurboTax has license restrictions. The paid preparer section is also X'd out, and the electronic filing is very restricted. You need a reliable software package specifically designed for professional tax preparation. There are over a dozen different popular packages out there for professional tax preparers. Each year, surveys of tax software are performed by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the National Association of Tax Professionals, or NATP. All the rankings are very close, and the average price is about $1,000. You can also pay on a per tax return prepared basis using many of these packages if you're trying to save money. You get the entire tax package, which includes state returns. The software vendor will generally charge you $10 to $20 per return. Once you have settled on one tax package from one vendor, I highly recommend that you stay with that vendor for at least 2 years. Tax information will automatically carry forward to next year. If you change vendors, the ability to easily transfer that data is greatly restricted and in some cases impossible. If it doesn't carry forward information to the new software, you have to reload all the basic tax preparer data, name, address, social security numbers, etc. Additionally, if you change software, you begin a new learning curve. It's just easier to stay with one system once you choose it. If you do feel you must change tax software, check out programs that have bridge systems that will enable you to import the information from your old software to your new application. You might also want to consider additional software that will complement the tax preparation package. For instance, you'll need to have word processing and spreadsheet capability. Consider Microsoft Word and Excel. You might want to have internet access through Internet Explorer. Microsoft Office contains most of these software applications, plus Outlook and PowerPoint. Microsoft is not the only vendor, but they are the largest and most commonly used. I mentioned earlier that the IRS is moving more and more toward electronic filing. What are some of the advantages? Well, it's faster with fewer errors. The clients receive their refunds more quickly. In most cases, those refunds come in less than 2 weeks and are directly deposited into the taxpayer's checking account. Additionally, you have less contact with the IRS. You receive a proof of filing or an acknowledgement form that is normally received 12 to 24 hours after the return is transmitted. So how do you enroll with the IRS? Well, you have to go through a registration process. Registering to become an electronic return originator, or ERO, is not difficult. To register, simply complete the IRS e-file application online through e-services at irs.gov. Initially, you should just check the box to become an electronic return originator. If your practice becomes sizable, you may eventually change your status to one of the other options. The IRS will do a suitability background check before you are approved, so if your record is shady, you may not be accepted. Most of the time, the IRS will approve your application and will send you an acceptance letter and a promotional kit. Another critical resource you need to have in your office is reference material that you can use to research situations and answer questions that affect your client's tax returns. I mentioned earlier that tax preparation is a knowledge business. You're not expected to remember everything, but you do need to know where to find information without spending too much time doing it. Don't try to memorize a lot of stuff. Just know where you can find it when you need it. Voluminous tax libraries are a thing of the past. Tax preparer information is readily available and at a lower cost than before. In addition to your universal accounting course materials, here are some other great resources. The IRS website is a tremendous resource that you can access at irs.gov. You can get publications, forms, and instructions for almost all tax forms. Also, they have publications by numbers and subject. It is available anytime. It also has a separate section for tax practitioners. Another valuable resource is the toll-free IRS support line at 800-TAX-1040. This is available 24 hours a day. During off-peak season, it can be a quick source for answers to your questions. However, during peak season, you could be on hold for a long time. The last resource I want to discuss is the National Association of Tax Professionals, or NATP for short. I recommend that you become a member of that association. By becoming a member, you have access to their tax counselors, which I believe are better trained than some you may talk to at the IRS. They are also much more accessible. Those counselors will have answers to your tax questions. Furthermore, their monthly periodical is one of the best in the industry and worth the membership fee alone. The contact information is in your workbook. It tells you who to contact at NATP through phone, fax, or email. As your tax practice grows and services more financially sophisticated clients, or you decide to specialize in these types of taxpayers, you'll want to look into some of the online research library subscriptions, such as CCH, PPC, or Kiplinger. You don't need those resources when you start. The initial resources I mentioned are more than enough for you when you start your tax practice. Let's discuss the importance of professional insurance for a few moments. We as accountants and tax preparers are risk averse. That is just the way we usually are. There are 4 risks that you should consider when starting a business. The first risk is property damage to your own office and equipment. The second is loss of income resulting from loss or damage of company property. The third risk is liability losses from injuries or damage to others. The last risk is personnel losses caused by exit or death of key people. There are insurance policies available for each of these. However, just like you can be underinsured, you can also be overinsured. Finding the proper balance takes some introspection on your individual nature, needs, and wants. Let me briefly discuss each of these risks and insurance solutions. First, let's look at property damage. If you're working out of your home, which you own, check with your insurance agent for your homeowner's policy to ensure it also includes loss of business assets being used in the home. If it doesn't, you need to decide whether or not to add to the policy. If you're renting your home or leasing an office, make sure you have renter's insurance that will cover the cost of the equipment and furnishings. This insurance is relatively inexpensive and may help you sleep better at night knowing you're covered. Secondly, more than having a computer destroyed, you should be worried about losing your storage files. Most would be difficult, if not impossible, to replace. If you were to lose these, you may lose clients and possibly their trust. In my opinion, the best insurance policies for this are good locks on your office doors and filing cabinets, which you should use regularly. Also, the file cabinets should be fireproof. For data files, it's recommended that you institute a regular backup program, probably weekly, and keep that backup file somewhere other than at your office. In the event of theft or disaster, you can quickly get back up and going with the off-site copy. Inexpensive insurance is available to cover some of these losses, but a little bit of care is likely your best policy. For liability losses, general liability insurance typically covers 2 types of losses, bodily injury and personal injury. If you have clients coming to your office, it's a good idea to have general liability insurance in the event a client is hurt while on your property. Also, look for a policy that will include protection for you in the event a client feels that your services damaged him or her in some way. And lastly, personnel losses, including yourself, can be devastating, not only for the company but for your family. Disability insurance may be sufficient in many cases, although this will only provide for the family of the injured, not for the company. To keep the company whole, you may want to consider life insurance policies or other types of insurance that will pay out in the event the person can no longer report to work. Before I leave this session, I would like to discuss one last topic. As a tax preparer and accountant, you need to be a shining example to your clients of keeping good records for your own business. You need to have a bookkeeping system that will track your own income and costs in a timely and accurate way. One popular accounting software system chosen by many professional tax preparers is Intuit's QuickBooks. This inexpensive system is relatively easy to set up, yet scalable as your business grows. It includes customer billing and payroll. QuickBooks, or whatever accounting software you choose, should be simple to set up the first time you use it. One of the first things you'll do in setting up your system is develop a chart of accounts. You can find a sample chart of accounts in your workbook. Let me summarize for a moment. In this session, we've discussed how to correctly establish your tax preparation business. It doesn't take long, but there are certain things that need to be done in order to make your life as a tax preparer much easier in the long run. Remember, the reason we are setting up this business is to make more money for ourselves. So, now you need clients. We'll discuss that next.